Folks, welcome to DaleWood Farm. Today we're going to be talking about hog process, hog breakdown. How to take a half a hog, break it down in your backyard, in your kitchen, in my case, in your home, into some manageable pieces and get some tasty cuts that you can put back in the refrigerator, possibly saving yourself a few bucks depending on how you came across this hog. You may have gotten it, when I say came across it, i.e. you may have gotten it for a good deal at an auction. You may have bought this thing, in trade, or just went in with half of somebody and bought a hog from a farmer, and you're like, well, now what do I do? I realized I got this bad boy. I realized that the butchers I thought I was going to use is backed up some ungodly number and I didn't plan for it. So what do we do? Now this meat isn't for commercial sale or anything like that, so this is no beard nets or anything like that. This is all for educational home use. That being said, some of the most important things to keep in mind when processing a hog or doing any sort of animal that you're breaking down at home, probably a deer for most of you guys watching here, coming in first, then a hog, maybe even fish or chicken, depending on how your homestead's set up. One of the things that I think is most important is to have a nice, clean, sanitary area, as sanitary as you can get. One of the things you can do, as you saw me just now, was glove up. I got a couple of, you can't have too many gloves. I mean, when doing any animal, you're going to have to change gloves a lot. I put on 2 sets of gloves at a time to try to keep a mental log so I'm never caught without one. It seems like sometimes when I'm working around these bones or with the knives and things, sometimes I'll look down and my darn glove is cut. And at that point, you're in one of those, well, man, my hands are messed up. Do I want to ... Having a couple sets on just kind of helps prevent and answer some of those questions. Now, getting to the topic at hand, how to break down a half a hog in your backyard, kitchen, or other environment. We got this big thing here. What are we going to do? Let's identify first our sections. All right, we got our rear end section here. We got our front section. We've got our middle section. Our rear end section here consists of our ham, if you can see this down here. Our front end is our front hock and shoulder. It's also going to include your neck bones and things like that. And your middle is your loin. When I say loin, you're going to have your tenderloin. You're going to have your pork chops. You're going to find your ribs, your pork belly or fresh side of pork, which can be later cured, timed, and turned into bacon. And then you'll have your chops. That should be those 3 sections. So 1, 2, 3. That's what we're going to try to break down into first. All right. So I'm going to take a minute here. We're going to adjust the camera. Make sure we can see this rear end here, and I can show you through some of the cuts on how we separate this ham from our sirloin tip. We're going to break the sirloin tip down, get our knuckle, and then turn around and get this in a more manageable, camera-friendly view so we don't have to do a lot of shaking and baking with the camera. Do this presentation. In my normal setup, I would do this probably have this quartered in the barn, but that makes it really hard and hanging into smaller pieces, so I don't have to worry about carrying this large hunking piece back to my cutting area where I can do this video. But for our demonstration purposes, I wanted to leave an animal and a half. That way you can see how to fabricate it down into those pieces before moving forward. A lot of my videos in the past have been time-lapsed. Alright, you'll see a whole thing and then you'll see it unzipped, buttoned down, eviscerated, and it's half. It's like, boom, 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 bam, now you can do it. This time we're going to take a little bit more time, kind of go intentionally through this bad boy and break it down. Alright, so our breakdown, the cuts you're going to want to make initially after you're opening this bad boy up, you're inspecting your lard, pulling out if you got a good fatty animal, and here you'll have some really white lard, some real white fat. That lard or that fat that you see there is called leaf lard. That is highly sought after for your bakers and your people that cook a lot. Your people that cook. It's some of your purest, cleanest fat. It's tucked inside there on the inside. This hog hanging weight after it was gutted and eviscerated was 210 pounds, 8 ounces. We've got that in half, so that'll roughly be, you can do the math there and figure out what one of these halves in this section came in. We raised this animal from a 40-pound piglet that we bought from a local farmer here, not too far from us in town, probably about 40 or 50 minutes away. We raised it in our back farm that I built over the summer with 5 of its other friends that you've seen maybe get processed in some of the videos earlier or scanned out, and now we're here. So this animal wasn't raised, in some sort of captive environment where you might see a really fatty animal. We prefer our animals to, to know where it's come from, to know what we fed it, to know that it had energy to move around, to circulate blood, burn out some of those fatty acids and things that pigs normally can't do. That gives us a cleaner tasting and healthier feeling pork that we believe. All right, so now we got some of the jazz out of the way and some of the filler stuff. Let's get our knives ready. Take your favorite knife and get to cutting. Okay, I see that tenderloin down there. I've had this meat hanging, folks, for about a week right now. So she's nice and firm. That's something else you want to keep in mind when you're processing your meat. Your temperature and your environment are key here. All right, you don't want to be processing and let this meat process an animal, dispatch an animal, and then turn around like, oh, I got him hanging in the refrigerator in the backyard barn for 2 or 3 days, dry age, and then it's damn 70 degrees out. Our current outside temperatures are 0. It's literally 0 outside, so I'm not worried about this meat is frozen. When I hung it, it was cooling when I got it. I got it, skinning it, and then processing and dispatching it. Whew. All right, so there's my cut. I stayed along the tenderloin there. That'll give me some options. This flap, if it was nice and warm, free or refrigerator temp, this will fall down, and I can flip this over. All right, then we're gonna go ahead and switch out knives. Get my good knives over here because I don't want to have to touch a lot of different things. And we're going to try and identify our sirloin, get this back end off from this ham. All right. So if you got your piece down there, you'll see your tailbone. You got the whole design to have that tailbone making a nice curve here. We got her in there towards the end of the ham. Bring our camera good angle over there. All right, right here, you have your H-bone, you have your tailbone. All right, you want to stay close to that H-bone, probably about a finger's down, maybe 1 inch. Bring your knife and just make you a cut in the direction of that tailbone. If you don't cut in the direction of that tailbone, you're running the risk of throwing off all the rest of your cuts, all right? So that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna cut down, essentially till you get to that there ball joint. You'll feel it and find it, and that's where you'll lop her off at, all right? So using our big knife. That's the name of the game. And in some of these, I'm even gonna just go ahead and break through with my saw. Because you gotta get through, there's a femur bone, there's your H-bone there. Alright, so our saw game, what we're going to be using for our saw today, I've got a handheld hacksaw. You can pick you up your own, it's battery operated. I use this just for this, it's not very high powered. And then I got some stainless steel meat cutting blades, you see that? Alright, we talked about that spot there. I made my mark with my break-in knife so I knew where I wanted to go, and I'm just going to cut straight through there, staying again about 1 inch down, not cutting into my tenderloin here. I see that there? I see the H-bone, or I see my tailbone here, stay about a finger down, and I'm just gonna cut straight down through the bone, holding the end of my hop. All right, after I get through, you can feel it there. I got through bone. I don't need to cut all the way through and run my saw down or anything like that. Crazy. We're gonna go ahead and take our blade back, or leave our blade in there. Move our saw out of the way so it's not getting nasty on anything. We can come back to using it later for when we need it. It's always important to have a good trimmings bucket around. 3D trimmings. The trimmings we're gonna use maybe for ground meat, steaks, or whatever. All right, so now we know we got through that H-bone and we got through that femur. We're gonna take our big breaking knife and go ahead and finish our cut the rest of the way off. Boom, look at that. All right, that gives us one nice looking ham. We'll come back to that in a moment. We'll sit you there. All right.